the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
I'm very excited about today's topic. I'm so excited. I wore
The
my
Super Bowl? The Super
I wore
Bowl?
my Continental
Oh, look at you, the Continental.
sweatshirt
I'm pretty sure they don't advertise that.
for today's episode.
Yes. Well, I'm just going to sit back and let you talk. There's a lot to talk about. This is a first, right? We talked about doing this with Raiders, the 3 movies, but we've never done 3.
No, we have. Laser Blast, Santa Claus versus the Martians.
Oh, but I
Ice
mean all the
Pirates.
same. All
Like
right.
3 connected
Fair.
films, are you saying?
Franchise, I guess. All right.
Yeah.
Jim's already disproven me.
Predator. Didn't we do 3 Predators?
Did
I
we
thought
do
you guys,
Predator?
I thought you guys did. I wasn't here then, but I remember listening to it.
Yeah,
I thought
it was
you guys,
the-
I
it was
thought you
the
guys
Predator.
did the new one, and then
We didn't do Predator 2.
We did.
I thought you did Predator 2, but not the original Predator. Did you do the original Predator 2?
Yeah, it was all. I think it
Or
was
the
all
original
3.
Predator as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Mm,
I remember the conversation about Predator 2. Because I remember.
how come I don't remember it?
Well, Jeff.
Except for the alien head at the end of the movie. Oh, I
Jeff,
guess
you and our audience can go back and listen now to that episode. Go find our Predator episode.
Oh, do you know what number that was?
No, it's probably in the double.
You don't know that off the top of your
No,
head?
I don't.
Yeah, because that was that Shane Black mess.
Pre-Christina era.
So it doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Yeah,
We were just
Christina.
practicing.
Christina was not involved in the Predator movies at that point. in
No, we were just practicing.
time.
Just biding our time, waiting for you to show up.
Mm,
Indeed.
All right. Well, as you heard, we are doing a trilogy. Well, it's not really a trilogy because there's more movies to come.
Yeah, I was
But,
going to say, what is this, Douglas Adams?
this
The
episode,
4th and the 3rd.
In effect, this episode is about a trilogy because we're doing 3 movies, and they are all John Wick. We haven't done
John
any. We
Wick.
haven't even touched on John Wick. We have not lit the fuse as of yet on John Wick. That will all change.
How many candle jokes are we going to make here?
That was my first and final, but
That was it?
Jeff. That's I leave that up to you.
No. Well, I will say that Jim came up with a genius headline for the Instagram graphics, which was the take on the Tootsie Roll owl.
How many wicks does it take? Yeah,
A 1? A
3.
A 3.
3.
John Wick.
and you guys had not seen these films before we watched them this week.
No, I think Jim had.
For some unknown reason, I had seen John Wick 2, not John Wick 1 or John Wick 3.
So were you
Okay.
completely confused?
I think I had fooled myself into. I had thought I had seen John Wick 1 when I saw John Wick 2. I'm like, I have no idea.
Oh,
If you get dropped into any of these movies, it's like, okay, he's shooting and killing people. That's all I need to know. So number 1 was first time. Number 2 was second time. Number 3 was first time.
Okay.
this was the first time I'd ever seen any of these.
Okay.
And I banged through all 3 within a week and a half. So
Okay.
it is very interesting watching them back to back to back, not waiting 2 years, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
I watched them over 3 consecutive nights, so they're
Oh,
all
yeah,
really
that's a lot.
blending into.
that's a
each
lot.
other for me.
They are. Well, even a couple days apart from each other, because I didn't take notes while I was watching. I just enjoyed them for what they were. And going back, I'm like, wait, was that in this movie or was that in the other movie? So, yeah, that's what Jim's here for. Keep us straight.
So I think
That
the
sounds
interesting
straight
thing
and narrow.
about these films is that everybody I know who sees them is always like, wow, that was better than I thought it would be. I think that everybody has an idea of what these are, and then they watch it and they're like, oh, it's not a completely conventional action film. And that's actually one of the things that I like about it, is because I am not interested in conventional action films. I only want the action to be ridiculous. I want everything to be like a John Woo
Well, you
movie.
come from that where you love those Hong Kong, that John Woo, so over the top stuff, that which is now obviously, there's a lot of influences in these movies from his work. But yeah, it's, if you watch these again, if you watch them from beginning to end, it's like a video game. Each level you're fighting a different boss, and it just gets more and more, the action just gets ramped up, and
that's funny that you say that, because it felt like that to me. I was coming to this from the opposite spectrum, because first of all, let me say that low expectations are fabulous. That I would love to go into everything I would love to go into everything that I experience with the lowest expectations possible. And that way I'm always pleasantly surprised. But I was coming to this from the opposite spectrum. This, I'm hearing, is the most brilliant action series ever conceived. So was it or was it not? We'll get into it.
Interesting. Do we want to do some news? Because it's been a couple weeks since we really kind of talked news. So I think that we need to just touch on a couple subjects, and then we can get right into, the Wiki universe here. Wikipedia. All right. Yeah, I did not come to the table. Just do your job, Jeff.
Just do the news.
Jim, you're going to be very disappointed, but we are going to start in the DC universe. Sorry. So we know that James Gunn and Peter Safran have taken over this monster DC, and they just announced their 10-year plan, which seems to be very, very ambitious. We are starting with Chapter 1, which is going to be referred to as Gods and Monsters, and it will be 10 movies and 10 TV shows, all interconnecting in a new universe, with 2 movies and 2 HBO Max shows per year. It is
so a 5-year plan.
Well,
Chapter 1.
This is Chapter 1 will be 5 years, and then Chapter 2, which has not been announced yet, will be another 5 years. So yeah, I guess they have this 10-year plan all figured out. But we are starting as of July 11th. 2025 will be Superman Legacy. And as we all know, Henry Cavill, however you want to pronounce his name, is not attached. From what I understand, James Gunn is writing the script as we speak, and that it will deal more with a younger Superman. Jim and I have gone on record that obviously we're more Marvel fans. But Christina, you have mentioned many times that you are much more into the DC universe, especially like the TV shows and stuff like that. So I don't know if you've ever read Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman.
I have not read that, but I've read other stuff by Grant Morrison.
Okay.
His Vertigo stuff.
And this was, I think, illustrated by Frank Quietly. But from what I understand, this is kind of where he's going with this initial Superman. So we're going to start off with Superman. We are now going with Brave and Bold, which is going to be Batman. But again, it's going to take place later years, where we're dealing with his son, Damon Wayne, as Robin. So it looks like they're really kind of steering away from any origin stories and just diving into this universe and maybe working backwards, where you'll probably have more of the Bat family.
Now, I read that there's going to be a Swamp Thing, and that I'm pretty excited about.
Swamp Thing is interesting.
This is a character who deserves a serious treatment. These are good comics. People have never read Swamp Thing. Like, these are good comics, and it deserves like a serious treatment. I don't want to see James Gunn goofiness. I don't want to see a trauma treatment.
See, this is what I'm thinking of, though, because this guy can't help but have a signature kind of stamp on things. So I'm curious, are they just setting this up? And then, obviously, like I said, it looks like he's going to be writing the script for Superman, but I would assume that other creators are on board with some of this other stuff, because you're also dealing with a Supergirl movie, Woman of Tomorrow, and The Authority, which I find very interesting, because that was Kurt Busiek, I think, and that was much more in the vein of like The Boys, where it was more like a subversive take on the superheroes. Those are the movies. And then you have 5 TV shows, which are Booster Gold, Paradise Lost, which is going to take place on Wonder Woman's Amazonian island Themyscira. Did I say that correctly?
Themyscira.
Themyscira, Lanterns, which I'm assuming is going to be Green Lantern Corps. Waller, which is a spinoff from Peacemaker with Viola Davis's character, Amanda Waller. And there's an animated show called Creature Commandos, which I guess is already in development. And the interesting thing is he said, rumor has it that any character that transitions over from live action to animated will be voiced by the same actor. It sounds like they really have at least some kind of a cohesive idea what they're doing with this.
Well, I was reading that in the case of Waller and Peacemaker, these things exist in the current DCEU. So there's a lot of speculation. Well, why is Henry Cavill not coming back? Because from all intents and purposes, it sounds like he may be keeping Jason Momoa as Aquaman and some others. I haven't seen anything about Wonder Woman yet, but are these movies that are coming out, closest to the boat, Shazam 2, The Flash, Aquaman, are they considered part of this? Or are they just getting rid of them to clear the slate?
Yeah, correct. We're kind of getting past all this.
Because The Flash could potentially set this up so it's all interconnected.
Well, that's exactly what was said, which The Flash is going to be the catalyst that creates this new universe. So whether it's an alternate timeline or if it's a reset or a reboot, but yeah, he does set it up that you could theoretically have Jason Momoa come back as Aquaman. He might not be the exact same iteration of the Aquaman we're seeing in this movie and Aquaman 2 in Justice League, but he's leaving that door open for someone. But like the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman, which is not dropping until 2025 now, I think a release date of May. So a couple months before the Superman exists as in what they refer to as the Elseworld. So in the comic book universe, they used to be able to do this all the time. They would do alternate takes on these superheroes. That was just a standalone story. But I think for moviegoers, casual moviegoers who just want to see, it's going to be very confusing.
I think that Marvel's already there. I mean,
Marvel's.
I think that this idea of, I said this when Marvel announced that like you'd have to watch the TV shows in order to follow along what was going on in the films. Like, I just think it's a lot to ask of people to like watch all these TV shows and engage with every single film, and it just after a while, like I think they're just going to start losing.
Well, I think that they will eventually, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think that most of the audience is keeping up. And it seems that these announcements, we were going to have the same actors voice any characters Marvel's done that already with What If. It's like they're hitting each beat.
Yeah, but but like when Marvel first started with Iron Man, it was never set up as a cohesive universe. They kind of backshooted in with the little end trailers that kind of teased it, and it was only later that they were able to pull together. These guys are at least trying to create. It's a lot.
Are they is this going to be like the Superman movie? Is it going to be a flashback movie, or is it going to be a young Superman that exists in this new DCU?
My take is that you probably will get flashbacks, but it is.
I mean, are they setting him up like a Tom Holland, as a kid? Against Jason Momoa's Aquaman, or I
don't know,
because there is room. Because Gunn himself said we didn't fire Henry Cavill.
He never was hired.
There's conceivably room to still have him as Superman if this is looking back for the Superman legacy movie.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I just find it interesting that after 3 months in these positions, this is what they're coming out with, and this is not all the movies. These are just what they've released so far. From what I understand, there are going to be some other tentpole movies dropped in here during this chapter 1. We'll just keep an eye on it. We have to talk about this, which is just AMC theaters. I don't know what they're thinking. Christine is already shaking her head. I don't know what they're thinking. We just talked a couple of weeks ago about my Regal closing. That movie theaters are kind of struggling when you got people who can just stay home 2 weeks later and watch this stuff streaming. And yet now they've come out and they've announced they're going to offer a staggered pricing tier based on your seating, which is fine when I'm going to Broadway, or if I'm taking my kids to Shakespeare at the Basketball and I don't want to sit behind the pole to watch the live actors, or if I'm going to a concert.
I tell you, I want pit seats for Cocaine Bear. I want to be in the pit for Cocaine Bear.
Right. This is basically live theater pricing for movie theaters, but in an industry that's already struggling to bring people back consistently, I don't know what the logic could be. Like you might say, okay, well, if you want to sit in a less prime seat, you could pay a little less, and maybe they think that'll draw people in, or
And
maybe they think that the most committed moviegoers will pay
lock
more
in those
because they're already going to the theater.
You know, actually, why they're doing this that I read? Because when Nicole Kidman goes to a movie like she does at the opening of every AMC, she wants a wide berth around her. So they're pricing out those seats completely.
So buy the seats. Well, so here's the deal. So we have the value sightline, standard sightline, and then preferred. When I walk into a theater and I'm paying for a ticket, I'm paying upwards of $16 for a seat. If that's preferred, and that's my regular seat, and I get my sweet spot, J10 or whatever, directly in the middle of the theater. And then they're offering up the front row, which, as we all know, most of those front row seats suck. So if I'm coming in late to a movie and those are available and I can get them for $5, $6 less, that's a little more appetizing to me than paying the same price as that guy who's sitting in the back and he's been there for 45 minutes. And now I have to crane my neck just to see the screen. But I don't.
I got an idea, AMC. Why don't you profile people by their age? Why don't you charge triple for teenagers without supervision? I think everybody would get on board with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really see, I don't know about you guys, but I don't see kids 13, 14 in groups at the theater by themselves usually. Like a little older, yeah, like 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, it's not like it used to be where, my parents would drop us off with my cousins and you go to the movie. All right, they're going down, they're going across town.
I still do. Dependent. It's really dependent on the movie.
14-year-olds?
Like when you go to like if Violent Night, or it depends on the movie. Really. I think Cocaine Bear, I'm girding myself for a real disruptive audience experience, and not an enjoyable disruptive audience experience, but I'm going to accept it. I'm going to accept it for what it is.
Can't wait.
I'm playing by the rules of Cocaine Bear, so I can't expect anything less. Yeah.
So you're gonna snort a line before you go in, fully take the situation.
Maybe I'll take a Xanax before I go in.
Yeah. So anyways, I think the jury's still out on this. Well, then most people, it's getting huge backlash. And I think this will just make people be, you know what? I'll just screw it. I wasn't going to go to the theater now. And I'll just wait another couple of weeks. It'll be streaming.
Right. And the problem is like this announcement's from AMC, but I'm going to say a lot of people might not even register that it's one theater chain specifically. And they might just be like, I'm just not going to the movies because they're going to charge me more for the good seats. And it's going to impact other theaters.
Yeah, no, just one more reason to stay away. I don't know.
Going to the movies with an audience can be such a wonderful shared collective experience. And I sent you guys a picture yesterday from the Music Box. It was the showing of Some Like It Hot.
I'm assuming those are value seats, by the way. You were pretty far away from those screens.
There's 700 seats in that theater, and the showing was sold out, completely sold out. And watching that film in the theater, like listening to everybody laugh and like clap and just like get into it was such a wonderful, uplifting experience.
Yeah, but I think Jim's pointed this out before, which is the Music Box and the types of movies that you're going to the theater to see and with packed audiences is a very, very niche. Everyone's there. It's not Cocaine Bear. It's not, let's go check this out. Let's, it's not the Minions. It's not, let's take the kids.
Yeah, so it's not somebody showing up to the lobby and not even knowing what they're going to see. Like, that sounds good.
Right. It's something that,
and let's I haven't seen you in a while. Let's catch up while we're sitting down in the movie.
Yeah, and get a burger to go. So, anyways, we're gonna leave the theater and we're gonna go to the streaming platforms because some ugliness going on over here at Disney. Bob Iger has taken back over. I can't even remember the guy's name that was before him.
Bob Chapek.
Chapek, that's right, Chapek. They just announced 7,000 layoffs. Disney employees due to corporate restructuring.
So it's going to take even longer to get on Peter Pan's flight then?
From what I understand, yeah, exactly. There's going to be no one to wrangle you in. They have 220,000 employees. So technically, this is only about 3% of their workforce, but it's still substantial. But from what I'm understanding, most of the job cuts are coming from the media and entertainment distribution department. But Disney Plus just came out and they announced that they lost 2.5 million subscribers. And that's pretty much a 1.5 billion revenue downfall.
And I read that it was almost entirely related to distribution in India, though.
In India?
The subscriber numbers, the loss in Disney Plus was specifically related
got you. Really?
Some issue with the way it's distributed in India.
Huh.
So it was
they were all sharing one password?
It was a very specific problem.
So, but I will tell you, I just heard that Indy 5 budget was released. $295.7 million was the budget for Indiana Jones 5 in the what is it, the Sword of Destiny or the Dial of Destiny. That's a lot. That's a huge chunk right there. That was probably Harrison Ford's payday.
I am curious about that because Crystal Skull didn't do that well, did it?
No.
I mean, maybe it did.
I think that still had another big budget, but that was 15 years ago.
And that had very bad word of mouth. It still does.
Still does.
If they make a good movie, maybe they've got a shot.
You've got Mangold who's directing this, and if you've ever seen Logan, it's a great take on that Marvel end of the universe. He's on the cover of Hollywood Reporter this week, and they talk extensively about this de-aging process that they're using. I don't think it's throughout the movie, but there's some substantial flashbacks. So this takes place in the 60s. So obviously he's now 80 something years old. So you have to de-age him. And what they did is they went back and they just used tons of footage, all the movies that he's ever filmed with the Lucasfilm.
So he's gonna look like Megan then throughout the film?
From what I understand, even he said he was not sold on it until he started seeing dailies. Yeah, if he's got the big giant doll eyes, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, that budget is actually for the health insurance to cover Mr. Ford because something happens to him in every single movie that he does.
Listen, you can't be running around while breaking a hip. And the only other thing I want to bring to the table with is that Tim Allen came out and teased this, and then Iger confirmed it. They are making a Toy Story 5.
I don't know why.
As well as a Frozen 3 and Zootopia sequel.
Every single one of these movies ends so perfectly.
Well,
even this last one,
which they didn't even want to do. And Toy Story 4 ends on something like, how are you going to bring Woody back at this point?
I don't know. And
why
it's ridiculous because Woody is Toy Story.
Unless they focus on Buzz, but to be fair, I was thinking
Buzz had his own TV show.
I was thinking the same thing before when they announced Toy Story 4. Like, how could they possibly do anything good after Toy Story 3? And
I know, but you heard the stories like when Tom Hanks has been doing this character since 95. They probably were recording long before then. And when he went in and he did his last loop of dialogue, he walked out and he was just like, no one even said, "Hey, Mr. Hanks, thanks for a nice job. Thanks for 30 years of playing this character." He was very disillusioned walking away from the studios. So you're going to have to do an awful lot of whining and dining to get this man to come back as this character. Is my take. And if there's no Woody, it's not Toy Story. It's just another Buzz Lightyear. And they bring a Chris Evans back. Well, I guess Tim Allen thinks he's returning. So,
it would be fabulous is if they actually touched upon the ridiculousness of the premise of Lightyear as that being a movie that you're watching in the Toy Story universe. Bring in the actor that was supposed to be playing Buzz Lightyear in that and have it all some meta thing. I'd be down with that.
Listen, I mean, Toy Story has been kind of meta from the beginning, at least the sequel. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows? They're going to make fun of it.
All right, let's get into this. We have a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I know. Well, I told you that there was a lot of news. We haven't talked news in 3 weeks. I'm sure there's a lot we left on the table, but those are the highlights I wanted to hit at. John Wick, let's go. I'll be seeing you, John Wick.
Tell us all about it, Christina. The mic is yours.
Oh, yeah. It's so weird that I'm the super fan of this series.
It is
pretty funny. Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, I knew of it.
Is this like a bizarro universe that we've entered today?
There you go.
Right, because I'm usually the one who's like, no, this kind of stuff is dumb.
It's
Yeah.
dumb.
I'm not usually a fan of like conventional action films, and you guys know I love Hong Kong films because, they always take the action to a different level. And I think that's what happens in these films for sure. Chad Stahelski, who directs all three of these, and he's going to direct chapter 4 as well.
Which is nice, having that cohesive
Yes.
follow through.
And he's a stuntman. He was actually Keanu Reeves' stuntman.
Which is crazy on the Matrix, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Dude, now I'm filming you.
So they have had a relationship for a long time, and they kind of came up with this concept together. And the impression I get from some of the interviews I've seen with Keanu Reeves is like he definitely has a lot of input in terms of how the shaping of these stories.
Yeah.
So, and I think they just go down real smooth. They know what they are and they do it really well. The basic premise is John Wick, an assassin for a big sprawling organization that just keeps getting more sprawling as the films go on.
Yeah, it's a little much, but keep going.
But he got out 5 years before the first film starts, so he could get married because he was in love. And his wife dies, seems of cancer. They don't say outright.
Yeah,
she had an illness that she had for a long time, and she dies. She has set up something to be posthumously delivered to him.
Yeah, hopefully
on her deathbed, she's like, you know what I need my husband to have?
Hopefully there's holes poked into this box.
There's a lot of holes poked in this.
It is. It's a little, crate. She has a puppy sent to him, so that he won't kind of cut himself off from the world. Basically, she wants him to have something to love.
It's a little beagle with floppy ears.
Easy.
And this beagle is so adorable that you truly understand why he does what he does for the rest of the film.
Yeah. Well, that and the stolen Mustang.
But it's, so he goes out for a drive one day. He's in his beloved classic car.
It's a gorgeous car. I'm not a car guy. I'm not a gearhead by any means, but I love Mustangs.
But you cannot deny the Mustang, especially late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah. 67 ragtop. Forget it.
So it's like a very beautiful, well-preserved car that he loves. He's out for a drive, stops at a gas station. On the other side of the pump, 3 guys get out of another car. They speak Russian.
One is as a member of the Greyjoy family.
Yeah, I was going to say Alfie Allen.
And he is missing no, that's another character.
Can I just point out, though, that it's clear that he has Jersey plates, so he lives in Jersey.
Yep.
It is illegal to pump your own gas in New Jersey. Just pointing it out.
Okay.
Plow hole number 1.
That's only so the gas station attendants can steal your credit card information.
Right, correct.
He's at this gas station. These 3 guys get out of a car. One character, we don't know who he is yet. His name is Joseph, played by Alfie Allen. He says he wants to buy John Wick's car. John Wick's like, it's not for sale. Joseph says something to him in Russian. John Wick responds in Russian. So now,
he spoke Russian. He must die, or at least everything he cares about must die.
So
this guy's a piece of crap in whatever he plays, huh?
They must have, followed him home, and they show up in the middle of the night. They break in, they beat up John Wick, they steal his car, they kill his puppy. What kind of person kills a helpless little beagle?
I'll show you. Yeah.
So John Wick is very upset, as we will see.
John Wick don't play. He don't play. But now this, as the movie progresses and you learn from other characters, definitely more so than Wick himself.
Yeah.
What a badass he is. Like, I understand he's got ring rust, but really with these 3 punks take him out so easily in the beginning of the movie.
I mean, I think that he was, really taken by surprise. It was the middle of the night. He's in his pajamas. Like, he's just not prepared. But later,
he can't stretch his legs properly in these form-fitting pajamas.
Give me a minute to limber up, boys. Just
but later, when
believe me, boys, give me a minute. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth your time.
But later, when he is, sort of prepared for the attack, when he's sort of like in his mode, and when he's in assassin mode, and they try to, send the guys to the house, you see how easily he takes them down, because it's like he's literally clicked over to a different mindset.
I was going to say, right, correct.
Yeah. Because
there's talk about him kind of walking away from that life. And at one point he even had the conversation, what John am I getting here?
Right.
So yeah, he's work John, and then he's like, I'm home guy in my pajamas with my puppy.
Right.
You guys are jerks. Just leave me alone. And
so they kill his puppy, and then they steal his car, and they bring his car to John Leguizamo's character, Aurelio.
So they didn't even want the car. It's not like this is the greatest car I've ever seen. I want this car. They're going to sell it right away. Right. So they're extra scumbag in this case.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and then Aurelio recognizes the car immediately, and he's like,
Where'd you get this car?
Get out of here with this car.
By the way, we also killed this puppy. Whoa, wait, what?
and did you kill him? And he didn't kill you? That should have been the question. How are you still standing?
How are you still here?
And talking to me?
Yeah. So the thing is I love this interaction, because Aurelio hits him in the face. He's like, just get out of here. I do not even want you or this car near here. Because he knows the first place John Wick's going to come is there looking for the car. He does not want to be associated with this crime in any way. So, but because he's hit Joseph, he gets a phone call from the head of the local chapter of this organization. Right?
The local chapters, not the Teamsters.
This guy, Vigo. They are kind of like the Teamsters, actually. They're like a union. They have a lot of rules. They are actually. And Vigo calls him, and this is one of my favorite interactions in the movie. And he says, you laid hands on my son. And he's like, yes, I did. And he's like, may I ask why? And you can tell he's getting ready to threaten to chop Aurelio into 15 pieces. And Aurelio says, he stole John Wick's car and killed his dog. And Vigo just says, oh, and hangs up the phone.
Click.
He's like, oh, I won't do anything mean to you. It's okay. I understand. Right. Yeah.
It's like, he needs all his manpower on deck. So there's no wasting time with John Leguizamo.
So, and that's when you immediately see, this guy used to really be somebody, right? And one of the things I like is that early on, before all this starts happening, you see John go out for a drive. He goes to the airport and he is driving around with his car. Yeah. So they establish that he has certain skills. It's not like magic the way it is in some movies where you're like, how does this guy even know how to drive this car this way? They make sure that he
practices. He's got to practice.
That he has this skill, because he does use his car defensively later in the film. And then
battering ram.
So once all this has happened, though, he goes in the basement and with a sledgehammer and uncovers his secret stash of stuff, right? He's got guns. He's got other things.
You think he'd leave it in a better place than?
Yeah, he's obviously keeping it just in case. But
so just put a lock on it.
He's making it so hard for himself to get to it.
Why did I do this?
And then he's got these gold coins, which are important because they're sort of like the currency of this world, right? And they have this very specific, this is one of the things I think that distinguishes it, is they try to start setting up this mythology,
like a lore. Absolutely.
For this world with these gold coins, so Vigo is so furious at his son. He's like, what on earth have you done? You are an idiot. And guy's like, he's just a jerk. What are you talking about? Man. Yeah. And Vigo says, he's the one you send to kill the boogeyman. Now he's got to stash his son away, right?
But then he should have said, but I kicked his ass, so he can't be that bad.
Like you took him by surprise. And then the funny thing is, both Vigo in this movie and his brother in the next movie mention that John Wick kills a man with a pencil. And then it comes back later when you see him kill a guy with a pencil.
Actually, it was the second movie. I'm like, yeah, it's the pencil bit.
But no, the funniest thing was where like when it's referenced both times, like, I think both characters say, who does that?
Right. They're so
this is where it gets into like Bourne Identity territory, where he's like beating guys up with a magazine. Like it does get ridiculous.
Right, but they lean into it. That's
absolutely.
The thing. That's the thing that I like is that
it's very believable that you could shove a pencil into someone's ear and kill them.
They're not trying to pretend that it's not a fantasy, which I think is the thing that I don't like about a lot of action movies where they try to establish somehow that this is realism, but they're not trying to do that. They're like, this is a fantasy. This is a fantasy world. They have all this world building. They have the body removal crew, which is also one of my favorites. You call up for a dinner reservation, right? Yeah. I have a dinner reservation for 12. And Charlie shows up with the crew, and they wrap all the bodies that you just made in saran wrap.
Service. Listen, if I was in the underworld, that would be my service. Yeah,
they clean up last. They wipe all the blood spatter. It's very nice, actually. Full service. They take the bodies away. So these bodies actually occur because Vigo stupidly, desperately tries to send a large group of men to kill John Wick. But John Wick is prepared now, right? He's got his guns, he's put his suit on, now he's ready.
This suit, that's all it takes, right? The super suit.
Let me just point out that Charlie is the Warriors come out to play. That guy.
The suits, right? The dressing, because like a lot of the other assassins sort of dress in a similar way. Even the female characters, like they wear suits, like Ruby Rose's character in the second movie, she wears a suit and a tie. It's
all business.
The gold coin currency, the body removal crew, like the whole concept of the Continental, like where it's like sanctuary.
Hollow ground, yes.
They really are just saying like, this is a fantasy. This is a fantasy world, just get on board with the realism of the world within the world. Right. And if you can get on board with that, then you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. It's hyper realism. Right. Like I said, I mentioned before, it's very much a video game. I mean, there are straight up some first person shooter action sequences, again, watching all three of these together very much builds up this idea that you're just going from one, level boss to the next until you get to the end kind of a thing. But listen, this guy is stabbed and shot multiple times. He is beat up. I got a cardboard cut underneath my thumbnail 2 weeks ago, and I'm still crying over it. So this guy just keeps going. He's like the Energizer Bunny.
The nice thing, I think, is they don't try to pretend that he's not hurt. Like when he gets hurt, he's hurt, right? He has to see the doctor. The doctor is like, I assume that you are not going to rest. So take these 2 pills. I'll give you some energy, right? So like, and they establish that. They sort of recognize, yes, he's been hurt, right? But they also establish that he can't stop moving. So they come up with this reason why he has enough energy to keep going forward and doing the thing that he's doing. So they do try to answer those questions for you in this movie. And of course, as the films go on, by the third film, he's got all the energy because he has to, because his life is literally at stake. The other thing I love, the concierge is one of my favorite characters.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Lance Reddick.
I would have liked it if they just called the Continental the Hitman Hotel. They're not hiding anything. Welcome to the Hitman Hotel. How may I help
you? Hitman? Are you Hitman?
His name in the film is pronounced Sharon, but it's spelled Charon.
Karen.
Right.
Yeah.
The ferryman. And the first thing you see him do is take
He's
a gold
paid.
coin.
He pays. Yeah. This
takes the
this
coin.
goes back to the mythology thing that you
Mhm.
point out. Even like with Ruby Rose, I think her character's name was Ares, even though it's technically not mentioned in the movie itself. But
yeah.
so right, the idea that he's paying for safe passage.
Yes.
In that the fact that this Continental is sacred ground that you cannot conduct business on.
It's a very convenient plot device as well, because that means that Vigo can't touch him in this hotel. So it's a very nice plot device to force the action to stop, because you can't do anything in the hollowed halls of the Hitman Hotel.
Yeah. And this is where we meet Winston, who is
Ian McShane is wonderful, as always.
So we learn later that he's working for a much bigger organization. You don't really get a sense of that from the first movie.
Right.
And I don't think that they meant to, just from looking at this stuff, I don't think they ever meant to have a sequel to this first movie.
Oh, I thought, no?
No.
Oh,
no, I mean, they were just making a movie, a bunch of people who knew each other having fun together, basically making
the high table is not mentioned in the first movie.
Right. One of the things that Chad Stahelski talks about is that when you make sequels, either you have to have like bigger monsters, you have to have like aliens, you have to have all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Or he's like, you can either make things bigger or you can expand out. And so what they chose to do was expand out. They chose to like establish the mythology further, right, with every single film.
Yeah. And I think that second movie does a fantastic job of doing that, of taking what you've seen in this one and really just kind of like blowing it up. Because this first movie ends is a typical action film. He walks off into the sunset kind of a thing. And
with his new dog.
That never gets a name, by the way. He's smart not to ever name
taking somebody else's dog from the vet's office?
No, I noticed this.
That's a good call.
I noticed this actually on the chart. The dog was marked for killing.
Oh, so he saved the dog.
Mm-hmm.
I call him Youthy.
So he saved the dog from being destroyed. The thing is about this first movie is it sort of seems like it's nonstop action, but actually they pace it really well. It goes up, it goes down a little bit, you have a little lull. It goes up, it goes down a little bit, you have a little lull. The last 20 minutes are really intense. Vigo really brings his problems on himself. I just want to say,
of course, all bad guys do. All bad guys do. Vigo, and this is like the typical bad guy mistake. Monologues when he can just kill John Wick. Many opportunities to just shoot him. Nope, I got a monologue for a minute and allow you to escape, and then kill me later.
John is caught at one point by Vigo, and Marcus, played by Willem Dafoe, saves him, right? Because he's a sniper.
Yeah. Marcus has been hired, by the way, by Vigo to kill John Wick earlier in the movie, but Marcus obviously says yes, but that he's helping him. He's not.
Yeah, there's a lot of double dealing going on around here. I don't trust anybody.
Vigo's got to know this. He's not like a newbie to this world.
Well, Willem Dafoe does not have a trustworthy face. I'm not trusting that guy.
One of the things I think is interesting is that everybody who meets John Wick seems to like him, even though they're scared of him, right? They seem to like him. Like Winston does some bends the rules a little bit, even in this movie, giving him information that he shouldn't give. He's like, there's no business conducted on Continental grounds. Go have a drink, right? Mm-hmm. And then he has the bartender give him the information that he's looking for. He's always trying to bend the rules a little bit for John Wick. But I think it's interesting.
Everybody likes him, but at the same time, none of them hesitate to stab him in the back. I like you, but I'm going to have to stab you.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take you
or kill you. So, but it's amazing to me that John Wick has lived this long in this life without these people already trying to stab him in the back and kill him.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it when we get there, but I have my thoughts about Winston.
What, for movie. John Wick 4, you mean?
Yeah.
Coming into John Wick 4? All right. Yeah.
But the interesting thing at the end of this movie is Vigo's so craven. He's so mad. His whole operation's basically been destroyed, right? John blew up all the money, the information that he had for blackmail, all this other stuff. And he's at the beginning, he's like, you can't take my son. And then he's like, fine, you can take him, because he just at this point wants to salvage his business. But then the mistake that he makes is that he decides he can't take out John Wick. In his head, he's made this calculation. I can't take out John Wick. I can't blame the man who ultimately destroyed my operation. So I'm going to blame Marcus for not killing John Wick. But when he does that, he infuriates John Wick, who then comes for him personally, right? Which is why at the end of the movie, he's just laughing. He's like, I can't escape this guy. I might as well just get out of the car.
When he's laughing, his head lackey is in there, like he's saying, why are you laughing?
Yeah.
This is the insurance guy that you can't kill. I wanted a better fight between him and John Wick.
That guy is not a fighter. He's a fixer. You know what I mean? He's like a lawyer.
But I've seen him in commercials get hit by cars. He's fallen off buildings, and this guy doesn't die.
He's mayhem, baby. It's the Allstate guy.
And one of the other things I like too is Adrian Palicki's character Perkins.
Ooh, and if you're a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes.
I've talked about before, one of the things that annoys me about a lot of films is that it disrespects female characters like this, but she's not presented like sexually at all. She's just presented as another one of the assassins. And I like that about this franchise. I'm extremely worried about Ballerina, which we can talk about later, because it is not directed by Chad Stahelski. It is directed by Len Wiseman, who spent a whole movie pointing a camera at Kate Beckinsale's butt. So
I'm assuming that Angelica Houston will not be in it.
I think she is.
Is she? Oh, so it's a flashback? It's
no, actually,
okay.
we can talk about it when we get to chapter 3, because it's actually related to chapter 3.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
But I
didn't
like
even pick up on. I forgot that you mentioned that there is that Ballerina is a spinoff.
I like that her character is just treated as equally as all the male characters. I appreciate that in this film and in the second film too, Ruby Rose's character. But she breaks the rules. Perkins does. She tries to kill John Wick on Continental premises, and then she does kill Harry, a perfectly nice guy, for no reason whatsoever.
I don't know if he's that nice if he's staying in the Hitman Hotel. I think he's got some skeletons in the closet.
And
is that what that is rattling around back there?
And the concierge tells her that the manager wants to see her.
Yeah.
And her membership is by thine own hand revoked. And she is killed unceremoniously.
Oops.
So by the end of this movie, the world that they've built is intact. So it's like we said, they didn't really have aspirations of turning this into a franchise. It was like a one and done. John Wick has the revenge. So if they didn't have a sequel, you could watch it as a standalone.
Nice wrap up.
Movie. Yeah, he gets his catharsis by the end. Vigo is dead. Everybody that infuriated him and offended him is dead. Yeah. And you're satisfied as a viewer. Obviously, it did well enough to warrant a sequel. Released in October. It was a fall movie in 2014. $30 million budget. It made 86 at the box office. So not a huge hit, but enough, obviously, to warrant a sequel.
Out of that budget, did you realize that 5,000 of that was made for CG dog poop? When a little puppy goes out and poops in the yard, they wanted to just give the dog laxatives so he could poop on command, and the animal control would not let them do it. So they actually had to pay CGI artists to create dog poop. Money well spent. So the one thing I didn't realize was this whole personal thing with Keanu Reeves, with the fact that his girlfriend died in 2001 in a car accident.
Yes, and their baby had died.
Yeah, and she was pregnant at the time.
Their baby.
She gave birth, and
the baby died. Yeah.
See, I didn't know.
Really
any of
sad.
This. You have to assume that he's somehow tapping into that.
Yeah.
Raw
he was unfortunately, and I think not very tactfully, asked about this a few times by journalists when he was promoting this movie.
So how was this motivate? Did this motivate your character? Yeah, can I motivate your
why would
fate?
you ask somebody that question?
That
like their baby died and she died. Like, why would you ask that? Just seems so tactless.
Yeah, no, I had no clue about this. But think about the fact that, he came off, he was on the Matrix trilogy. Bill and Ted's. I mean, this guy had a really great run of different franchises. And yeah, he's a completely different character here. Like there are certain actors, like Harrison Ford is always just Harrison Ford. That's Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. That's Harrison Ford as Han Solo.
It's funny because really... I said he's made a lot of different types of films over his career, but I said to my son, I was like, in the first decade of Keanu Reeves' career, he was Ted. In the second, he was Neo, and now he's John Wick. Like in the public imagination, like he always seems
fair. That's absolutely
always
fair.
Seems to embody like one particular character.
Yeah, I did see they had to fight for him to keep that beard. The studio did not want him to have facial hair, and he was the one who pushed to name it John Wick, because the original title was Scorn, which just sounds like a very generic.
It does. From what I understood, he liked the name John Wick so much, he just called it that in his head. And so everybody...
I guess he would go on these talk shows and he would talk about the John Wick movie. So yeah, you know what? It was pretty good. I can't believe it took me this long to watch a damn thing.
Show my hand right up front. I think this is the strongest taken on its own of the three movies. I do appreciate the world building in 2 and 3, but it gets into overkill in those. And there is a sense in this one even that you're watching a video game, and it's a bit gratuitous with the face shots and the head shots and the blood spatter over and over and over again. But you're invested, and it's an engaging movie, and there's definitely an art to the violence and to the mayhem. I would give this 3.5 buckets. The first John Wick movie. And
I will give it 4.5 because I love this movie. Like I said, I think it goes down real easy. I just think, it's engaging enough for you to, have your brain click in, but like it's not so complex that like you feel like you're hurting yourself watching it, Yeah,
agreed. I'm going to go right in between 3 3/4. I liked it. It was very entertaining. I do see it's all over. All three of these are all over television right now. So obviously they're gearing up for the fourth one being dropped in March. When we first decided to do this, all three of them were available on HBO Max. And I watched the first 2 on HBO Max. And then I went to go watch the third, all gone. Not weird. On HBO Max at all. I had to watch it on Peacock.
Yeah, I watched all 3 on Peacock with commercials.
With commercials.
That's fine.
Yeah. I want to bring this up. I just thought this was an interesting little note, and I didn't pick it up. But in the movie, there's a point where he's going into the nightclub, and he talks to the bouncer, and he makes some mention to the bouncer. He's like, "Oh, you lost weight?" And he goes, "I lost 60 pounds." And it just seems like a throwaway line of dialogue. Apparently, the actor who played that role said this was like all code. He was basically telling him how many bad guys were inside the building by telling him 60. And that's why he was allowed to live at the end. He let the bouncer live because he helped him suss out all the bad guys. And I'm like, all right, so stupid stuff like that. Probably repeat viewings. You start picking up on a lot of this little stuff.
And I saw that they filmed that nightclub rave scene on the set of Matrix 2, and they just kept the footage.
There you go. Jim can never escape that rave
I
scene.
Can never. I'm going to mention that every single episode
there
that we
go.
ever record.
Well, even more so on part 2 because we got Morpheus.
I think the other thing is that you can tell because Chad Stahelski is a stuntman that like the film is very respectful of the stuntmen, and I'm sure everything was done like extremely super safely. Like,
hell yeah. And practical too. I don't think there's a lot of CG stuff going on. I mean, CG blood and blood splatters and stuff like that. But beyond that, it's all physical. I mean, you watch these guys and they are really fighting. And this, I think by the time you get to the third movie, Keanu Reeves is like, dude, I'm like 50 years old. I can't just keep doing this.
I like I said, I've watched all the behind the scenes stuff. Even on the first one, he was over 50 and he was like, this is just hard to do at my age,
Yeah, I can imagine.
I like that he does this. I like that he says, I try to do what I can, but I'm not a stunt man.
Yeah.
And that's
why he had Chad.
But I think a lot of times there's this fiction that's built up because the studio is trying to sell an idea that a lot of these actors are doing stunts that they're not actually doing, and it's supposed to somehow make it, sell it more to the audience. Like, oh, look, he's out here doing all his own stunts.
Right. Yeah.
No, they're not out there doing all their own stunts because you have to be trained to do that stuff. And because your insurance company
Well,
won't
that's just
even
it.
let you.
Yeah, that's why the
endanger the life.
Tom Cruises of the world out there strapping themselves to the side of an airplane.
If you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you.
You're going to tell me that he did not run around the top of that Dubai building? There's footage of it.
If you believe it, I have a bridge to sell you.
Where is this bridge?
And a little place called Brooklyn. And I like, though, that Keanu Reeves, he tries to do as much as he can, right? And they try to do as much as they can with him safely. And he trains. He spends about 6 months training for every single film. He does jujitsu, he does judo, he learns how to fall and all this stuff. But they'll do what they can with him, but then they'll bring in his stuntman.
Yes.
And
you idiots, you caught their stunt doubles.
Well, it's covered pretty well, but his stuntman, especially in the first two movies, I noticed when the stuntman was in, because he has a much larger gluteus than Keanu Reeves does.
Wow. We see where your eyes are going.
Keanu Reeves is a skinny guy, so it's kind of noticeable in certain shots.
A lot of times it's back shot too. I mean, when it's being shot from behind.
Right.
But now with you can rotoscope faces and drop them on.
Right. Well,
nobody else noticed that. They couldn't slim him down with the computers.
Listen, the budget was already over.
Look at this guy's buttocks. Come on. We got to slim this guy down. Everybody's going to know.
Either that or Keanu's got to start eating more.
He tries to do what he can, and he's so but I appreciate that. He's respectful of the stunt team. He doesn't try to pretend he's Superman.
Something he's not, yeah.
And he's like, I try to do what I can. They take over. Everybody's, training hard. Everybody's trying to be safe. And the stunt team is credited in a way I think that they're not normally, because people are usually just dismissive of stunt people who do a lot of this super.
Well, like you said, and a lot of times they won't even, the older movies especially, they don't even give credit to stuntmen. Mm-hmm. It's just all made to look like it's the same person.
Right. And I just think it's so disrespectful of people who are literally putting their bodies on the line, so that these movies can look good. And I like that, obviously because Stahelski is a stuntman and because Keanu Reeves is who he is, he doesn't try to pretend that he's something he's not.
Right. So, and again, a lot of this stuff is practical. I mean, that scene where they're on motorcycles on the bridge. I mean, they're really on the bridge chasing. I mean, obviously the motorcycles are probably tethered to the camera car or whatever, but it's not like they're on a soundstage with a CG screen behind them.
Some of the stuff in the third movie, a few things they're on a green screen, but a lot of it is still practical.
When you get into the glass, when you get into the glass structure, a lot of that has to do with camera angles and reflections. It's easier to do it. See, you can't be throwing people through glass walls. Well, even if it's
you can if you're
candy
John
glass.
You can if you're John Woo, put glass in Tony Leung's
eye. Can you do that? Can you do that now? I don't know. John Woo may not be able to do that now.
Well, let's go right into John Wick 2. We'll take a break in between 2 and 3, and then we can go to the concession stand.
Fair enough. So 5 minutes in, and I'm like, we're just going to rehash everything that just happened in the first movie. I'm like, he's still after his car. And I was dead wrong because I was going to be severely disappointed that this was just part 2. I still want my car. I already revenged my dog. Now I want my car. No,
and it's Vigo's brother, no less. It's like just have a replacement in for Vigo.
It's like bringing in the Hans Gruber's brother. By the third movie, it's like, I
was shocked. Like, what? They didn't bother to get his twin, but apparently they were going to bring the original actor back from Vigo. I don't know in what capacity, but he was ill, so he couldn't.
Yeah, he passed away.
Oh wow.
He died, Michael Myers.
That's really ill.
Yeah. No, he did. He was fairly young when he died.
No.
The third movie, if you watch all the way to the end of the credits, it says in memoriam Michael Myers.
Wow.
So maybe they would have had him play his own brother. I don't know.
Could be, right. So, but I was very happy to be wrong that this movie starts out and you really think it's just going to be a rehash, and then boom, off to Rome we go. And
well, here's the universe building, right? So all this stuff that has happened, you had no idea about in the first movie. Like, and there's all these other conventions and gimmicks that they bring in that exist in this gangster world, like the concept of the marker.
Yeah.
So you are told that the way in the first movie that John Wick had to do some really incredible job to get out of the life in the first
the impossible task.
But you're not told really what that was. I don't think
you want to know, right?
Yeah, it's left to your imagination.
Yeah.
So you kind of get a little bit more info about that. He needed somebody's help to pull off this impossible job. And because of this, he's indebted to him now. He's physically indebted to him because he's got this little coin. It looks like a little compact mirror. You open it up and you put your blood fingerprint in there. So now you are owned by this person.
Yeah.
And the only way you can get out of it is if that other person. So there's so many rules in this world. It's like the only way you can get out of it is if that other person puts his. Oh,
you remember at the end of the first movie when you thought you could walk away? Yeah, no, that's not good. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the brilliance of this. This is really this part 2 is The Empire Strikes Back.
Well,
you're taking your character and you're just building upon this world.
There's a few things I think that are interesting though, which is for me, this is the weakest of the 3. Because
I would agree.
This is my favorite of the 3.
I would agree with that.
I don't dislike it. I just don't think it's as strong. I love, like, by the time you get to 3 and it's completely absurd, I'm like totally on board for the ridiculousness of that. But this is essential because this is where the world starts to expand, where a lot of these other rules really get established. And, this is when you start having the stuff about the high table and the markers and all this kind of stuff. And you start to see that Continental is in more than one city, right?
Right.
So there's like multiple.
Which makes sense if you're going to have a safe house.
And they've got like a Hard Rock Cafe type of, merchandising thing.
There's there's a gift shop. Thanks for your stay there, Hitman. We do get to see the pencil bit though in this one.
Yes, we do, which I love.
Oh, that was in this one? That wasn't in 3? I couldn't remember where that was.
Yeah. This is also where he's using a horse as a weapon.
No, that's in the third.
No, that's in the third
3.
one?
That's in 3.
Oh,
yeah.
See, maybe 3 is my favorite. Damn it.
So,
I can't even keep track.
In this one, this guy, Santino D'Antonio, and by the way, I hate him. This guy is so smug.
They're all smug jerks.
Shows up and says, basically, I have this marker. I demand that you fulfill your promise.
Yeah.
John Wick is like, no, I'm really retired.
I'm out. No, you're in. I'm out.
And he's no, I heard that you were working. Somehow the word gets around very, very quickly in this.
You saw John Wick. What?
Mm-hmm.
You saw him?
Organization. And then he demands that Wick keeps his promise. Wick says he won't do it. And Santino blows up his whole house.
Imagine what he would have done if he had an actual written IOU from John Wick.
That's better than money. That's an IOU.
So now John feels forced back into the life. But this is what's interesting. He had this stash in his basement, but he also has a stash in other places. So I think
he has to, right? Because he's screwed.
He's already exhausted. Yeah.
I think in some deep part of him, he knew he would never really be out.
Well, they did make it sound like not many people make it out.
So he created all these stashes in different places. You see one here where he goes to the bank deposit, right, to get his thing out. You see one in the third movie where he goes to the library. He's got the stuff hidden inside the book.
Not a single person's ever taken that book out, by the way.
Right. It's more so like that the screenwriter had to have something to fall back on. Well, he needs to wear a new suit. So let's put another stash of money here. And let's put it, I'm sure he's going to have more stashes in John Wick 4.
Right. So he's got these little stashes all over the place, but it sort of indicates that the character never really thought he would be out. So I think that's an interesting thing. So Santino D'Antonio shows up, and what he wants John Wick to do is kill his sister. who is seated at the high table, which is like this organization that oversees all of these assassins and establishes all these.
We never actually see the table, do we?
No, maybe we'll see in the next movie.
Oh,
if they call it the high table, they will
Right, it's gotta
actually
be.
have a
Yeah.
table.
That's like Arthur in this round table. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, I want to see this round table. No, we just sit around it. It's not round.
And is it high? So like all
It's
their
gotta be
feet
high.
are
Yes,
dangling. Yeah.
I picture it more like on a dais, so that everybody who
Ooh, way
approaches
up on
the
high.
table,
Yes.
Mm.
But we're led to believe that every single person on the street is a bounty hunter in disguise. Just waiting.
that's what I
Every
mean.
person.
That's what I mean.
Every
That's
person.
where it just starts to develop like this absurd degree of fantasy, and that's
And
where
not
you
a cop
just
in
have
sight. Yeah.
and that's where you just have to go with it, right? Well, the one cop you see is Jimmy, who keeps showing up at John Wick's store and saying, "Are you working again, John?"
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's completely on board. He's like, "Hey, John, is everything
what is he
all
going to
right?"
do with this information? I just wanted to know. I'm not going to do anything.
I need some overtime. I just need to know what's going on.
So again, John Wick living this life as long as he has. Should know that Santino is going to try to kill him after he kills his sister. There's no way for him to get out of this at all. So if he has any illusions that, once I do this, he should not be shocked that Santino is trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Because if the guy wants to kill his sister, he is not an upfront guy to begin with.
It's very infuriating, actually, that he does that, though, because he's like, once you do this, then like we're done.
You can't trust a bad guy. You can't trust him.
He is. He's a very bad man.
He is.
Yeah.
And really, they just are short of him crossing his fingers behind his back as he's saying this.
Right. But before he goes off to Rome to pull off this murder, isn't this where you meet the Bowery King?
Not until a little later in the movie.
Oh,
because he comes back to New York after.
Yeah.
Okay,
Rome.
all right, fair enough. So he does the deed and then comes back.
Right.
Okay.
He goes to Rome. He doesn't actually really do it though, because she does it her way, as she says. She knows he's there to kill her, and she decides to take matters into her own hands.
But he still shoots her, and this
because he's got to make it look like he did it.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you guys have exposed me to too many of these silly murder mysteries because she slices her wrists and she sloops down into the pool, and you hear him pull the trigger. You hear the gun go off, but you don't actually see it. And so for the rest of the movie, I'm thinking to myself, somehow she's still alive and she's coming back. I'm like,
no, she's dead because
she's dead. You're right.
Because for a couple reasons. Because first of all, Cassian finds her, right? Common, Chicago in the house. He is her bodyguard.
Maybe has a personal relationship with her as well.
Well, he just failed at his job.
Well, she had sent him out. She said, "Go outside."
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to freshen up my makeup. And then all of a sudden, John Wick's there, like a creepy ghost standing behind her. He is furious. He wants to kill John.
He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job. He's out of a job.
But, I think in some ways he's mad at the wrong person, right? He should be going after Santino because, he chases John down. They have a big fight. They end up going through a window of the Continental. So they have to stop fighting. And John explains that Santino had a marker and that he was the one who asked him to kill his sister. And Cassian's like, well, you had no choice. And John's like, yes, I had no choice. Cassian's like, but I'm still going to kill you. Okay.
Then I'll consider going after the brother. Then I'll consider it. Yeah. But let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Weren't they on the Continental grounds already before they went through the window? Because they're on the roof. John Wick later touches the stairs of the Continental.
Yeah. I think it depends on if you have a witness. When he touches the stairs, the concierge is standing there. The other thing I like is the manager of the Continental in Rome asks him if he's here for the Pope. It's like, let me ask you a question. Are you here for the Pope? And he's like, no. Okay.
Okay.
Let me ask you a second question. Boxers or briefs?
On the Pope?
And let me also point out, they do not stop the concert or the light show after the panic after the murder and the
The show
gunshots
must go
happen.
on, man. The
Yep.
show must go on.
The other thing I like about this movie is even though obviously like technology exists, right? People have cell phones, but there's also like landlines and rotary dial phones and pneumatic tubes. Like when I was a kid, I thought the pneumatic tubes at the bank were the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I love that you get to see like this organization where like there are women typing on telex machines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
do you-
actually really
wait a second,
cool.
wait
Such
a second.
Throwback.
Is it obligatory to have tattoos all up and down your neck and arms to work at this place?
It is
You
a
cannot get a
prerequisite.
job.
Be.
I don't
Yeah.
care about your references. I want to see your tats. And
Yes.
yeah.
And your
Nice.
piercings. And it's not ageist, by the way, because the woman who makes the
Mhm.
announcement is an older
Yes.
lady
Yeah.
and she's got all the tattoos and the piercings and her hair is dyed, like the full
Yep.
works. I like it. I like the sort of rockabilly sensibility of this sort of administration hub.
right.
Yeah, and it really
um,
builds tension watching
in-
this stuff
in
unfold.
a cut scene, Morrissey was the floor manager of this.
Maureen, can I see you in the office?
Right. So when he comes back, that's when he kills the guy with the pencil because now there's this contract out on him because Santino's like, well,
Mhm.
I know I asked you to kill my sister, but now
I have
to punish you for killing my sister. So I put this contract out on
but,
you.
But wait a minute.
And
yeah.
Winston says, you have stabbed the devil in the back. You know, he's like, Winston's laughing to himself. He's like, you are the dumbest person alive. Whatever
Yeah.
you think you're going to get away with here, you're just not.
Okay. Until the third movie,
So he comes back. He's got this contract out on him. Everybody in New York City is apparently looking for him. Somebody conveniently left a couple pencils lying around.
number two pencils.
Just feeding into your hatred of Santino.
Mhm.
The line is, once he confronts Wick after the double cross, what kind of man would I be if I didn't avenge the death of my sister after I ordered it?
Yeah.
You should have
What
added
kind
at
of
the end
man
that.
would I be?
I'll tell you, though, that I really like Cassian as a character. And I think there's a possibility that he could return at some point because he's still alive when after he has this fight with Wick on the train. And I mean, I really like Common, but I like as an actor, but I also just like the character. And I think I'd love to see him come back at some point. I think there's a possibility that could happen. You know, if he gets medical care.
If he gets medical care, if all of them get medical care, they can all come back.
So this is where it really gets, you're talking about the ridiculousness of
yeah.
This is where it gets crazy because Santino opens up, accounts payable is the office where all the girls work.
Right.
So they open up the contract. So they open up an account for $7 million on his life. So this is where you see like that pretty much everybody on the street, from buskers to, random sumo wrestlers walking around, are hitmen that all have their little flip phones, and they get the message at the same time that there's this contract. So everybody is looking at John, like wherever he goes. So like you said, Jeff, everybody on the street is a hip person.
And this is where you're introduced to the Bowery King because he uses the Bowery King's operation to escape.
The hobo,
and I think that this part of the world building, I think, is pure genius because it's a bunch of overlooked people who appear to be powerless, but actually have more power than almost anybody by virtue of their invisibility.
I am the Bowery.
So I really, really like this part of the world building. And I, of course, so happy to see Lawrence Fishburne, right? When you first see him, when you're watching it for the first time, you're like, hey.
Yeah. Although I was really confused. I'm like, why is Hobo Morpheus not offering Neo the red or blue pigeon? I did read the little white pigeon that he was coddling the entire time was taken by a hawk during filming. You can't imagine the things flying around underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. Is that the bridge you wanted to sell me, by the way?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
you want to buy?
It's a nice bridge. Yeah. It's a nice bridge.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll talk later.
But I love his whole interaction with the Bowery King because he basically lives by the Bowery King's mercy here.
Yeah.
You know, he says, I can be valuable to you. Barry King's like, look at my kingdom. Like, I don't really need you. But then he basically says, if I take out Santino, then he'll come after, the high table will come after me. If you do it, then they'll come after your kingdom. And so then he says, do you want a war or are you going to give me a gun? And he gives him a gun.
Isn't this line straight out of the Matrix, though? Somebody, please give this man a gun.
But unfortunately, he starts a war anyway by giving him the gun, because anybody that even helps him in the slightest way is guilty by association.
The third movie, again, ramping it up. So all these, everything that happens here in this movie, there's
consequences.
Yeah, consequences. Yeah.
But he gives him a gun, but he only gives him 7 bullets.
Yeah. I'm not going to help you that much.
$1 million a bullet.
Right, for each million on your contract. And every time one of the Bowery King's minions sees John Wick, they're like, there's a contract out for you for 7 million. And every time John Wick is kind of like, okay, like, are we going to fight now? He just kind of has this look on his face like,
I've already had this discussion 10 times today.
Like, are we
really want to do this? I'm a little tired. The guy hasn't had a pee break, or have I seen him eat?
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting, right? You got to assume he slept on the plane. Maybe he had a snack.
I wouldn't even trust sleeping on the plane. Everybody's a bad guy.
John chases down Santino, but Santino manages to get away and get into the Continental. But John's pretty angry at this point. And he does.
We already know. We've been told several times that you don't do business in the Hitman Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, don't do it. You're with Winston. You're like, don't do it.
Right?
Don't do it.
He's going, Jonathan.
Right? Yes, correct.
Put the gun down. And Santino is so smug in that moment. I would have shot him too.
Sorry, dude. I have to. I'm sorry.
So we've wrapped up the revenge story in John Wick 2, but now this opens up a whole other world of problems for Mr. Wick. Santino is dead, but now Winston has no choice. As the Hitman Hotel's manager, and, without rules, we are animals. That's his motto. That's the high table's motto. So he has to act. So he calls down to accounts payable. They have doubled the bounty on John Wick's head. And he gives them an hour. But this is all set up in Central Park. Winston is revealed that he's controlling all the passerby. I want to know, like, if you're just a normal person trying to walk in the park, it's like, the hitmen are doing something again today.
Damn it. These hitmen are everywhere.
Do they have a day off? When can I just walk through the park?
But
New York.
What I think is interesting here, and I think it's at this point, obviously, the screenwriter is starting to think more long-term because this ends on the cliffhanger, going into the third film.
Yeah, this is your Empire Strikes Back. Your heroes are on the run by the end. And
instead of killing him outright, like Winston does to Perkins in the first movie, he gives him this hour, which is what he feels he can give him. And what I think is interesting about this is it's very clear to me that Winston has some kind of long game and John is a chess piece in this game. And that's, I think, true even in the third movie because of the way things play out at the end.
Spoiler alert.
But we'll get there when we talk about the third movie. But this is where we had seen this movie and then we're like, we have to wait 2 years to find out.
Yeah, this is to be able to turn around and immediately watch this third movie. It's very good.
And now after the third movie, only having to wait a month to see the
You guys are so lucky because I have been waiting since 2019 for this movie to come out.
Yeah, this is a great ending to this where he is just on the run. Complete opposite of the way the first movie ends.
So he has 1 hour before legally, I'm going to say,
right.
Well, legally, anybody can actually attempt to kill him. And he's in the worst place because he's in New York City where everybody is a hitman. So everybody is looking at him as he's running past them on the street. And that's how the movie ends. And between this and John Wick 3, I think a drinking game could be established. Every time somebody says excommunicado, yeah.
You'd be very drunk really quickly.
Yeah, right. I'm already drunk.
Drink slowly.
There you go. Sip some of that single barrel bourbon he was drinking there.
So they have no choice but to make a John Wick 3 at the end of this, or the hordes would be screaming in the theaters.
Oh yeah, at this point they're setting it up as a trilogy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So this did much better than the first one did. That's what you want in sequels. You want more returns. Sure. The more movies you're making, the more money you want back.
But you're up in the stakes, you're up in the action, everything is doubled in this.
Yeah. So this was a winter movie, which was curious. So this kind of got released in the dregs of, the movie-going calendar in February so it was like a Valentine's Day movie in 2017. It cost $40 million to make, so they upped the budget, made back $171 million.
Wow.
So this did much better than the first one did box office wise.
Positive word of mouth by that time had really grown. Like I said, I feel like everybody who's seen the first movie is always like, hey, this is better than I thought. And then they tell their friends, hey, you should go watch this. It's really fun. Yeah.
Really? Isn't it just more of the same? No, go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, well, that's where I think for me, this movie, the action sequences just went on too long. I think I did feel that it was gratuitous. Shots to the face, shots to the head. After a while, it got too much. I actually wanted to get to the exposition, get through the action.
And you just get to the Continental.
Rather than the opposite, which is what I'm normally doing. Let's just get to the next fight scene. I'm like, I want to see what's happening with the Continental.
Yeah, I kind of felt that in the third one.
So, and I read mixed reviews for the second one. The first one was pretty much unanimous, where everybody loved it in terms of reviews. And I saw some that mirrored what I was feeling in this one, The Guardian. This is a little bit extreme, but a shameful example of Hollywood gun pornography. The audience bloodlust continues to get chummed.
Wow.
It was like watching a video game. Like that feeling you get watching somebody else play a game and you can't play.
Yeah.
See, it's so funny that I like this movie because my son and I are watching it again and we're like, John's very efficient. He doesn't waste bullets. He goes for the head. He doesn't mess around, right? Like we're happy to see the headshots.
Well, especially when you only got 7. You got to make them count.
So buckets wise, I think I would go 3. I gave the first one 3.5. I'm going 3 for John Wick 2.
Right. And I'm going to go down to like 3 3/4 for this one, just because I do think it's, of the 3 so far, this is sort of my least favorite, but it's essential in establishing everything that comes in the third film.
Yeah, I kind of like the world building. I really enjoyed taking everything that we had seen in the first one and really kind of ramping it up. So I'm actually going to go up to 4.
You like this one better than the first one?
I did. The first one was almost very formulaic. This one really kind of takes everything and puts it on its head a little bit. And Jim, when you pointed out, after a while, and I guess maybe also because we're watching all 3 of these back to back, that it's much. But I really felt that going into the third one, when you get into the enclosed glass house, and it's just, again, very much a video game. I've just got to, I'm exhausted watching this and I'm not even doing anything. And this guy is like, you just got to go through one guy after another in order to get to the big boss at the end. So, I really enjoyed this. Although I did think that the horse chase was in this one. So I guess it's in the third one.
It's in the third one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. This is what happens when you watch them all together. Oh, we're going to go to the concession stand?
Yeah, we got to take a break. So let's get up. Let's go to the concession stand. Let's get some sustenance. Let's get some sugar
I don't know if these things
get
are
us
really
through.
Sustenance.
And talk about sugar. Yeah, this is going to be a shot to the brain.
It's like straight sugar, right?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, I think that is the number one and only ingredient.
But my big question is, are we talking again about the Ferraro company?
You will hear their name come up. Yeah, these guys are a monopoly. I don't know what's going on. So, if anybody has not listened to our concession stand, we've been dealing with our favorite candies, our concession candies, and I don't know why I didn't think of this first go around, but we are talking nerds. So anybody who doesn't know what these are little neon colored mini rock candies. and they just have like these irregular pebble shapes. So 1983, they were created by the Willy Wonka Candy Company factory. Introduced, obviously they created this. I think it was Nestle or Hershey created this whole Willy Wonka thing to promote the movie when it came out in the 70s. But these nerds came out in 1983. Immediately won Candy of the Year from the National Candy Wholesalers Association in 1985. And one of their unique features is this dual box packaging. So these little tic-tac shaped boxes have two sides to them, and each side has a little port that you can open up, and you've got two completely different flavors. The originals were cherry grape and strawberry grape. And the fun thing about this, are you ready? Did you know that the word nerd came from Dr. Seuss? The very first use of the word nerd is traced back to a 1950 book by Dr. Seuss called If I Ran the Zoo.
Oh, I used to love that book.
It is the very first mention. Ready? I'm going to read you the passage. And then just to show them, I'll sail to Katru and bring back a... and bring back... I can't even... And bring back an it clutch, a preep and a prue, a nurgle, a nerd, and a seersucker too. So, Dr. Seuss... You can trace that word all the way back. And a year later, the word nerd was used in a Newsweek article where it was referred to, I guess, as Detroit's teenage slang for someone who was a drip or a square. So it hasn't wandered too far from its original source. But this candy is also the first, I think, that we've covered that actually has a mascot. Up to this point, our candies are just candies. Maybe Willy Wonka. But again,
I haven't had a nerd since the 80s, so I don't know if I remember that it had a mascot.
Well, they're the little nerd,
the nerd
they
guy.
Look like little, yeah.
So it's not like one. It's not one character. It's just the nerds are alive on the box,
they're
right?
anthropomorphized. They're these little rock shapes.
I don't know if I remember that.
It's actually they're on the side of the box.
Okay.
And the description is the nerds have a booger-looking anthropomorphic creature that can only be described as part Smurf, part Shmoo.
Okay.
So, but in 1988, Nestle bought the Wonka Company. In 2001, the Nerds rope was introduced, which I think you can get in the concession stand as well sometimes. Right next to the licorice, you can get the little Nerd rope. And then, Jim... In 2018, the Ferrara Candy Company came a calling. So now currently
it was a Nestle product before.
It was, yep. It's currently labeled under Nestle, but yeah, the Ferrara Candy Company owns it. So, and over the years, they've come out with Sour Nerds, Rainbow Nerds, Jumbo Nerds, Gumball, Neon Nerds, and Dweebs, which are soft, chewy versions of Nerds. And are you ready for this? At one point, they actually released in the late 80s Nerd cereal.
Nerds. Whoa.
And it came with a divider with two completely different spouts and flavors. It was reported that eating it would produce red, orange colored bowel movements. Oh. So that may explain why it's now extinct.
There's a lot of artificially colored things that kids eat.
Yes.
Where when your children are young, you suddenly discover there's colors in the toilet.
Yeah.
I remember my son eating
red dye number 5 out of your M&Ms.
Some blue gummy sharks one time, and we were pretty appalled at what happened afterwards.
Baby shark, doo 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 doo. Yeah. So
let me say, for the purposes of this show, my research purposes of procuring nerds.
Yes.
They came in a little box, just like the same size as the snow caps as the goobers. So in a movie theater sized box. So I couldn't find one with a divider. So the only one I could find that wasn't gummy nerds or some other variation was the rainbow. So my box is completely mixed.
Yeah, it looks like there's multiple. There's strawberry, grape, wild cherry, and watermelon. Double dipped lemon, wild cherry, and apple watermelon. Sour lightning lemon and amped apple. So there's surf and turf, Tropical Punch and Road
Surf
Rash.
and Turf?
Surf and Turf. Tropical Punch and Road Rash Raspberry.
Okay,
Is that like flounder and T-bone?
Like filet mignon on the other side?
So there you go. The nerds are out there.
I just have to say that Nerds Rope is my wife's favorite candy.
So how are they attached?
It's
not like a rope.
it's not
It's not like you
licorice.
eat
It's
it.
not licorice. It's a long strand of it's a gummy
Like a nougat?
thing.
Nougat?
They're stuck to this rope. So when you open the package, obviously you're going to have a lot of spillover because
Right. All
come
the
off.
pieces come off.
But yeah, you're eating regular nerds attached to this gummy rope. So that's what it is.
Interesting. Not to be confused with Pop Rocks, but
It's the same constituency without the popping. Nerds always reminded me of the gold nuggets that you could get, but that was gum. That turned into gum when you chew down onto the gold nuggets, but
I
it's the
remember
same
that.
shape.
I guess that's what the dweebs are, the soft, chewy versions. Yeah. They actually
Yeah, I
have
like
seasonally-
nerds. I like nerds.
Yeah, I do. I like the sour ones, but they have seasonal jelly beans too. Only available around Easter. Nerd jelly
I don't
beans.
think I seriously don't think I've had a nerd in more than 30 years. Like
I mean,
I remember
most
eating.
adults outgrow them. It's sugar. It's like the number one. Like I looked into the ingredients and it's like you don't even want to know what this is because it's.
But I think also because when I was young, I liked things that were straight sugar, but nerds were not my preferred thing.
Right.
Like I liked actually things like I like pixie sticks better. I like the Lick-a-Made.
Pixie sticks. That is pure
The
sugar.
Lick-a-Stick. The
Lick-a-Made.
Yes,
where like you put
Lick-a-Made.
the little, like you had the little
Yep.
candy stick and you stuck it in the
Yep.
powder.
Yeah.
Those were like also straight sugar, but I just liked those better than
You know what
nerds.
also that I liked, and this is an acquired taste, I know, those wax bottles that had the liquid inside.
Oh yeah, and you had to like chew the.
You had
top
to
off in
bite
order to-
off the top
Yes.
to get to the liquid. You couldn't
Yeah.
eat that. That was straight wax. You couldn't eat that. So I'm sure some kids learned the hard way that wasn't.
Didn't they also have like the wax lips?
I
Yeah,
never
that-
ate those.
was
I didn't
it
like
liquid?
waxy things.
No.
Yeah.
Waxy.
Hmm.
So there you go.
I wonder how much wax
Nerds.
is in nerds. You know, because a lot of times things like
I was gonna say that.
Starburst and Skittles, they like have the carnauba wax in them. You got to figure
Mhm.
like that's what's holding the shape of the nerds together.
It's like a little M&M shell.
Mm.
I used to like to suck on the nerds like lifesavers. I didn't really
Yes.
go
Yeah, you
like
get
chew
a mouthful of
yeah.
them, you roll them around, get all the glossy stuff off the top
Yeah,
of them.
yeah.
So there.
All right, I think we've made a case for nerds.
Nerds. Nerds!
So let's get our boxes and let's make our way back to the theater for the conclusion of our trilogy, John Wick 3.
Parabellum. We had to add a word to this one. We just had to go.
Yeah.
Does John Wick 4 have any kind of
No,
subtitle?
it's just chapter 4.
So why is this one standing out as a parabellum? Did they just like the word and they're like, we got to use this? I
They
think
wanted to make it
Winston
sound. It
says
sounds more epic, right? It sounds more epic than
And
just
you immediately
regular
got, I
John
got to
Wick
look
3.
this up. What the hell does this mean?
But it's setting it up for the next thing, right? Because it means prepare for war.
Right.
And
So then
But
just
he
call
always
prepare
is.
for war.
He always is, though.
Why even give me a name? I have to look up. It's like, wait,
That's nothing new for John
this is
Wick.
Jeopardy right here.
I think it sets up that this is like the middle chapter of something that's gonna go on for at least 2 more films, right?
2 more films.
Yeah. it's gonna be
I'm sure
5.
Keanu is thrilled with that. I got to do this again? Come on.
Well,
Nice
you know,
paycheck.
part of the issue is like they made this in 2019. The intention was that they would start shooting 4 and 5 together, you know, and that 4 would come out in 2021. But we had this whole, you know, worldwide pandemic thing,
Well, that
and
thing.
that didn't happen. So it got delayed, and I'm sure, you know, from a stunt and training point of view, he's starting to think
Yeah.
enough is enough. But
enough. Yeah.
You know what's funny about this though is that I only really started to think about this with the third one, and I don't know why, because it's prevalent throughout the John Wick movies, is the trope of the action hero with the dead wife who has, you know, who often looks wistfully into the sunset while he has a flashback or whatever.
He's got a photo of her everywhere.
You know, how often have we seen this?
Lethal Weapon.
Punisher, Fugitive, Usual Suspects, Kick-Ass, Road War, all the movies go on and on and on. But the funny thing was, like, looking at some of the reviews, I did find a review that was specifically about this, written by Allison Wilmore for BuzzFeed. And this was funny. This was the headline. A man isn't complete without a woman to feel sad about, but still spend minimal time with her on screen.
Wow.
So you guys may have heard this term before. This is a trope that's known as fridging. Have you guys heard this term?
Nuke the fridge?
No, it's a term that's called fridging. The term was coined by Gail Simone. She wrote a thing called Women in Refrigerators, and it's basically based on a Green Lantern comic where his girlfriend is like killed and stuffed into a refrigerator. Okay.
Damn.
And so what Gail Simone said, she sort of developed a list of like female characters who had who are devices to move the male character's story arc forward. And the girls are always, they're raped, they're killed, they're maimed, they're injured, whatever. And they're just basically there as plot devices to move the male character's story arc. And this is called fridging as a colloquialism. So it's very, very common, especially in comics, but certainly, as you mentioned, Jim, it's used in film all the time.
It's really, it's just such an easy way to get audiences to sympathize with a character that's doing despicable things.
Right, but it also treats women as if they're disposable.
Well, I was going to say, but they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. They're just using the women in this case as a plot or as a character building for the male.
So yes, they didn't have her murdered by another assassin, but she's still there to be this angelic creature who only exists in this idealized form in his mind.
And you never see them fight in a flashback.
Right.
You only see when they're holding hands on the beach.
Honey,
or
can we
whatever.
get a puppy? I don't want a puppy. There are a lot of
who's gonna walk it?
So I love the fact that this literally picks up minutes after the second movie. He is pouring rain in the middle of Manhattan.
Because that was my thought. Is it still? Are we still in the hour here? Are we? Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I think maybe 3 minutes passed.
Yeah, and he's on the run.
Yes.
And again, everybody seems to know everything because he tries to get into the cab, and he realizes the cab is not going to get him as far as he needs to go. So he says, "Can you take the dog to the concierge?" And he's like,
"Yeah."
Sure,
he gives
Mr.
him a marker.
Wick.
Sure, Mr. Wick. And then he gets out and he walks around the corner and there it is. And I'm like, you didn't need to get in a cab for that.
The Hitman Hotel does not have dog sitting services yet.
Mm-hmm.
The concierge agrees to do it as a personal favor. Mm-hmm. So, even if Winston doubles the bounty, that he still has that concierge in his corner because of the dog thing. They have a connection.
And also, the films go to great lengths to establish this dog will not be killed because the dog will be safe at the Continental, right? So that you won't go through that again. They're like, we did that to you one time. We won't do it again.
No, we're just going to shoot someone else's dog instead.
Dog's going to be but the dog was not killed.
How did that dog get shot and somehow miraculously ended up in a street fight for 20 minutes?
Well, I think that the dog had body armor on.
His body armor was on the back of him. That guy shot him point blank in the.
And she finds the bullet inside his armor, right?
I call foul on that one. So, that dog was shot.
The thing he's looking for at the beginning of this film, he's going to the public library. Yes. Right. He sends the dog to the Continental. He's going to the public library. So he can go to another one of his stashes where he's got his ticket. So again, every film establishes something. The first film establishes the gold coins. The second film establishes the markers.
How much of this stuff is in this world? Like, oh no, he's got a marker, but the ticket trumps the marker. Right. What trumps the ticket? That's what we're going to find out.
We'll find out in 4.
Yeah,
yeah.
But before he goes to the library, he goes to get stitched up. In the last 5 minutes of the hour, and that poor doctor. He's basically killed him.
It's after the library because that's where the guy stabs him.
But that's right. That's right. But still, my point is the same. Mm-hmm. The doctor he's dead. Whatever this doctor does.
Well, he knew when he opened the door. He could have just said, I'm sorry, John, I can't.
He did. But
I
then
know
he let
did,
him
but
in.
But he still opened the door. He let him in. So at the end of the day, he
Because
knew
this
what he
is
was
that
doing.
weird thing where people seem to like John Wick.
What's
For him, you're a nice guy. I'm okay with dying for you.
Because I'm really sorry I heard about your wife.
And so let's also talk
Your
about
puppy.
going back to the library. Then the 10-foot tall hitman.
Yeah, this guy.
Like
That guy was
if
on
you're
the,
that
I think he was
tall,
on
like
the Lakers.
the whole thing about being a hitman is being inconspicuous. And you see the size of this guy's hands? He could cover Keanu Reeves's entire skull with one of his hands.
I do like as they're fighting, he kept going, shh. I shouldn't have been alive forever.
I mean, maybe not in this world. He's, he doesn't have to be inconspicuous because everybody is a hitman. So,
Exactly. So I was so on board with this at the beginning of this movie because of the ridiculousness of this 10-foot tall guy, then getting into the horse fight. When he's like positioning the horses to kick the guys in the head. I'm like, I really hope that these fights just get more and more ridiculous.
No, the fact that he's using this horse as a weapon is because he's just.
But they didn't. They couldn't sustain that. They couldn't sustain the opening salvo.
That's fine. You can't use you can't carry the horse around like a.
No, but I wanted it to ratchet. Like you used a horse now you're going to use like a bear.
They
or
do.
Something
They use
else.
two dogs. Two dogs.
The two dogs.
The two dogs. The attack
I will.
dogs.
I will tell you. I had an uncle who, as a little kid, was kicked in the face by a horse, and he went through his entire life with a caved-in face. His forehead protruded way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's nothing you mess around with.
Was it like Moby Dick? Did he always was looking for the horse? From that point on,
the white horse. Yeah.
The white horse.
Yeah.
So I watched the behind-the-scenes stuff. Keanu Reeves did train to do the work on the horse. He's wearing wires. Okay, so he's not like hanging off the horse unharnessed. He's on a wire, but it is him doing it. And they show him like going through the practice and them practicing, choreographing the shot. But the one thing they had to do was they had to lay pads down for the horse to run on in New York City.
Yeah. Because those horses were all like handsome cab horses. They weren't meant to be running on concrete.
So they put these pads down that then had to be digitally removed. So he did do the stunt.
And then the guy stood on the side with the two coconuts making the noise.
That was one thing where he really wanted to do the stunt on the horse, but he's like so wired. He's got like 6 wires coming off.
Yeah,
of him.
well, you can't have your hero falling off the horse.
He's not falling off of that horse.
Because you also have to deal with a horse that because you're filming in Manhattan.
Right.
Or you're filming on a street set. So it has to be desensitized to noises or anything that could jump out. And I'm sure that on a film stage set, you try to control that as much as possible, but it doesn't take much to spook a horse.
So that was like just a fun thing. And that whole sequence is great because he goes into the antique shop and he like jerry rigs this gun.
Yeah. That's interesting because he was taking the pieces apart, trying to build a better gun there based on the bullets that was interesting. And I will tell you, as many times I worked in Manhattan for years, every time I'm in Grand Central Station, I can't help but just stand there and look up in awe. It really is a magical place. And that whole scene was shot, and that was great between him and what's the guy's name? Zero.
Mm-hmm.
I just called him Yul Brenner.
Wait. Are we not going to mention the Brotherhood of the Wolf?
I didn't even pick up on that. Yes,
really.
Mark Dacascos.
Mark Dacascos is Zero.
Yeah. Oh crap!
I know of him as the Iron Chef. I'm like, hey, it's the Iron Chef.
The Iron Chef. Yeah. Wow. I didn't. That's right.
So before we go there and before we go to Morocco and everything else, he goes to have his ticket torn. And this is basically like returning to his home tribe where they must help him. They must give him passage because he has a ticket. And this is a one-way ticket.
There's rules upon rules upon rules going on here.
You need a book. You need like a booklet for this. It's like
but again, so you're introduced to Angelica Houston's character. So you're getting more of John Wick's backstory now that you had you think that John Wick 2 opened up the world. You were in the lobby in John Wick 2. Now you're in the big
you find out his real name, which was cool.
Yes. Jordani Jovanovic. And this is where you will see the character that Ana de Armas will play in the film Ballerina. She is Rooney, played by Unity Phelan here. She's the ballerina who's on stage, who falls down. She's dancing solo.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is the character that Ana de Armas will play in the film Ballerina.
And you know that she is significant because she has the same tattoo on her back.
Right.
Right.
And they did get the New York Ballet to do the dance scene that they have later in the film.
Oh, and they're practicing.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
So he uses this ticket so that he can get passage to Casablanca because he's got a marker for somebody else.
Of course.
There we go. Off we go.
And the interesting thing about these markers is people apparently use them in desperation and then are mad at the people who show up to collect.
Right. It's like, damn it. I thought you forgot about that.
And, you know, she has a very similar reaction that Judd.
Because if you think about it, when Santino came with the marker, Wick is like, I changed my mind. But
no, you can't.
But I have a marker here.
Yeah,
that's too bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Wait, this doesn't mean anything. What about ticket? Can I punch your ticket?
So, you know, and she, I think, is the only person who is not happy to see John Wick. Everyone
but
else,
she helps him anyway. She still helps him.
But she's so angry at him.
Yeah, for showing up. She deserved it the way she was treating that poor ballerina, though.
But that's what she says when they come for her. But he had a ticket. I had to help him.
I don't really know what else to tell you. Yeah, he had a ticket. Sorry.
Right. So he uses the ticket to get to Casablanca, where he sees Sophia, played by Halle Berry, and she really doesn't want to see him.
She doesn't want to see him either, right? No one's happy to see him in this movie.
She's got the marker. He's got the marker. He's like, I helped you. I need you to help me. She's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Heck no. But she does help him. And he's trying to get to see the Elder, who's yet another figure we've never seen before. Nope. This is what I mean, where I really like the third one because they're just like, we're just going to make this as ridiculous as possible. Yeah. But the more ridiculous it gets, the more I love it, you know, because they're just saying this is completely outside of reality, completely 100% outside of reality at this point, right? It's this like elaborately built fantasy world. And this is to me where it just gets so fun. And this is why I actually like the third film a little better than the second one, because it just starts to reach absurd new heights in terms of the world building. So you have.
I'm now convinced that 4 we're just going to be in space.
We might be.
It's going to be. It's going to be Moonraker. Moonraker. Yeah.
So he needs to get to see the Elder, who is the only person who sits above the table, and he lives in the middle of the desert. And you have to walk until you're half dead to find him.
It's like yogurt. I really thought it's yogurt from Spaceballs.
It's yogurt. Yogurt, the great yogurt, the powerful. Oh no, just plain yogurt.
He goes to the Elder and he basically asks for a second chance, you know, because he wants his contract off of him. He can't live like this. He knows this. No. Right.
Yeah. Like, and this is beautiful though. The shot of just black suited John Wick walking through these desert dunes. The silhouette, it's a really striking shot. And again, it's like you said, you know, we've seen him in the city elements and you know, in the tunnels and all this other stuff, and now all of a sudden to see him in the raw desert, it's a very striking visual.
And I think that one of the things that does distinguish these films is the cinematography is pretty great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the color choices, you know, again, very video game-ish. There's a lot of neon going on. Very fun to watch.
And so he goes to the Elder, and the Elder basically says, I'll take the contract off you. I'll close the contract if you take out Winston. This is why I said I am really engaged in the character of Winston, because it's interesting to me that the Elder sees Winston as the threat. Winston is the person he wants taken out here.
Well, he knows that Winston's like pretty much.
I just think it's interesting that that's the person he asks John to take out. Not just because he has a personal relationship with him, but because Winston is a threat. And that's what I mean when I say Winston has a long-term game and John is a part of it. Even given the way this film ends, I think that was planned.
And what we haven't mentioned yet is the adjudicator.
Oh, what a great character.
Yeah, they're really amazing.
Yeah,
like,
it's amazing.
They're so hardcore throughout this. And my son was like, I can't stand them. And I was like, but they know that they have like this power that is given to them by the table and they wield it.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's a fantastic character because again, in the second one, you see all these people that are coming to and helping him out, and now they're all paying the price. You can't go against this
even Morpheus
table.
Even Morpheus isn't immune.
I am the Bowery. Yeah, 7 slices, baby. Where do you want it?
Yeah, and they show up and they're like, well, we'll give you a week to get your affairs in order. Yeah. And at the end of that week,
I think that's very generous.
That's the equivalent of monologuing. Like you want to kill this person, just kill the person right there.
You know what? I'm here. You know why I'm here. Take your time.
Well, except that they don't, right? They tell Zero to give the Bowery King 7 cuts for 7 bullets, right? Yeah. If he survives, he survives.
Yeah.
Right.
How about 7 bullets for 7 bullets? That seems more in line with what they're doing
that
here.
He wasn't going to survive that. But
going back to Wick, he has to cut one of his fingers off to show fealty. So and this is like explained to me as I'm thinking it. I'm like, why does he even bothering? Why does he even want to go on? To bother? Right. He's like, I want to live because I want to remember. So then bring in the dead wife as
correct
as the reason for him continuing on.
So what's he do? He chops off his ring finger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from this moment on, I'm obsessed with watching his hand throughout this rest of this movie. Just make sure that they got rid of it.
Now, I didn't realize that there was a Metro North line from Casablanca to New York City.
Yeah, no, it just opened recently. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
2 hours, I think.
Yeah.
I think he probably, took a nap on the plane, had some food, a little rest. That's why he's got more energy in the second half of the film. It's a long flight.
A potty break.
Yeah.
So now we get to the Iron Chef. When he steps off into Grand Central, then we get the Iron Chef. So this is where, it's getting a bit much for me because I am very aware as well that these running times are getting longer.
Yes.
From 1 to 2 to 3. This one is 2 hours plus. And we know how we all feel about the 2 hours plus. I just want to confess, towards the end of this, during the big fight between Zero and John, I actually dozed off, woke up, they were still fighting.
I will tell you, by the time he makes it up to the top to fight Zero, I wanted it to be over as well, because he has to go through 2 other henchmen beforehand. And we got this, the mirror shots with the man with the golden gun type of a thing going on here with the reflections. I wanted them to just pull an Indiana Jones and just break out a gun and shoot the guy before they even fought. Done. Over.
I think for me, because they try to keep it inventive, that's what keeps me in it. Like, the last 45 minutes of the original Avengers film is like nonstop things exploding, and I fell asleep 3 times before trying to watch that movie before I ever got through that sequence.
What? But Hulk's smashing that.
Because it to me, that's just conventional action. It's not interesting to watch, but I like watching this. I like watching all the stuff happening. And when the guys are coming into the Continental and John and Sharon keep having to go back to the vault.
That's a great sequence. You get another round of weapons and there's Mark.
John comes in, he's like, I need a bigger gun. And Winston just gives him this popped eyebrow, whatever you want. You
want guns? I got guns. Give this man a gun.
But even Zero loves John Wick because he's like, I'm a huge fan. Is that the dog? I thought the dog died. Is that the dog?
Yeah.
I know. I love that.
That was really funny when they're in the Continental and he's sitting on the couch and he comes and he sits right next to him. He's like, what are you doing? He's just a fanboy. I'm going to have to kill you, but I really, really like you, dude.
And he keeps trying to say, we're the same. And John Wick's like, we are not. But that he wants that recognition from John. He wants John to say, yes,
he wants, we're
the same.
That was a good fight, right? Right, John? That was a great fight.
That's one of the things that makes it sort of fun and interesting is because he's like, oh, I'm fighting my hero. He's like, you did not disappoint.
Yeah.
So this is when we get into, okay, the setup for John Wick 4. So now we're setting Winston against John Wick.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
It certainly appears that way at the end of this movie, because in order to clear his name with a high table, Winston decides to shoot John Wick, who falls off the roof of the building and does a Michael Myers on the pavement. The adjudicator is like, okay, this is great. Now you're back in. But once John Wick is missing, now everybody's after him again.
But this is where I think Winston knew what he was doing, right? He shoots him. He knows John Wick is wearing a bulletproof suit, right? Because they have this.
But he's just got a living crap kick out of him.
But he fell off. He fell off the roof too.
He fell off the roof in a place where he wasn't going to fall straight down. He bounces off a bunch
which
of
would
things.
break anybody else's neck.
Well, but again, this is the world rules.
He's John Wick.
He hasn't broken. He got a finger chopped off, but he hasn't broken a single bone. And he lands
in an alley where there's a representative of the Bowery King who scoops him up and puts him in a shopping cart and takes him away.
Cart.
I think you just like Ian McShane.
Mm-hmm.
I
think
he's a piece of crap.
I think that Winston is going to be the bad
Winston
guy.
I think you're going to have to.
I think Winston might be a bad guy, but I think that John Wick is part of his plan. That's all I'm saying. I'm not committing one way or the other. I'm just saying that John is part of his long-term plan. That's what I think.
That is a long end game right there.
Well, the elder wanted John Wick to kill Winston.
That's right.
So
there's got to be a reason, yeah.
There's got to be a reason for it. And I just think that he's, much, much more important overall. I think one of the things that's interesting, and so Mark Dacascos was cast really, really late in the game. They had another actor to play this character, and something happened. He got ill or injured, and they were about to start filming. So they called up Mark and they said, "Do you want to be a part of this?" They sent him the script. He read it. He was like, "Yes, I do." He calls Chad Stahelski. "Yes, I want to do this. When do you want me there?" And Chad Stahelski says, "Can you come tonight?"
Wow. Hold on. Let me rethink this now.
Yeah, he just sort of had to drop everything and go join the cast if he wanted to be a part of it. But he's a great character.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. And as we see that the Bowery King is still alive, and
love that ending between the two of them.
Yeah. So are we gonna get Carrie Ann Moss in 4? We got the trilogy. We got the Trinity coming back.
I mean, maybe.
It just kind of underlines though that ending when Morpheus,
the
Bowery King asks him, "Are you pissed off?" And, yes.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but he still has one marker. Yes.
I don't
What
know.
do you mean? He had the marker he took out?
No, I
was
thought
the
that
one.
Winston gave him one, which he then gave to Sophia, and then he took one out of the book.
Maybe it's for something else. Who knows?
Okay, I was trying to keep track. I'm like, I can't keep track of this stuff, but okay, maybe I'm wrong.
So now, in terms of release, first one was a fall release. Second one was dregs of winter release. This one, they graduated to Memorial Day weekend. The budget exponentially went up for this one. $75 million. It made over $300 million box office. So
the more you spend, the bigger your returns.
Mega blockbuster now.
But still, $75 million is very conservative budget.
Oh yeah, especially when we just mentioned that Indiana Jones 5 was almost 300.
I wonder, I just wonder what because this made so much, how much they're going to allot for number 4. What we're going to see for what the budget was for number 4.
I did see it cost them $4 million just to make that glass structure so they could fight in it.
So, I think probably because they are working with the same team all the way through and they can do so many of the effects practically, that probably does affect their budget, right? Because they can keep it down because they can do a lot of these things in camera and they don't have to do it
Correct.
digitally and all that kind of stuff. But I think 75 million is incredibly reasonable for
That is
like
that is very cheap.
a big action film.
Sure. Yeah, especially when you're globetrotting. I mean, I'm sure there were some cheats there. I didn't look into it too much if they actually went to Casablanca, but they did go to a desert. Could have been.
I think I did read
Nevada,
that they filmed on location, some shots at least in Morocco.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe some of it was filmed at Epcot Center. Who knows? But,
Drinking out of a Mickey cup.
Bucket wise, I'm gonna go, I think, in between the two. So I gave the first one 3.5. I gave the second one 3. I'm gonna go 3.25 for this one. It's still, I think it was too long and I got kind of tired. I think if it had maybe 20 minutes less, you got to pull it under that 2 hours for me. And I think I would have enjoyed it more if they pulled back just a bit.
Yeah, I also got, it was overload by the time we got to that big fight sequence in the glass building. It was too much. But at the same time, watching these back to back, you can't help but get a little fatigued. So, but I'm going to go 1/4 above. I'm going 4.25 on this. I've gone up 1 each time. So I really like this.
Gonna say 4 because I still don't like it as much as the first one, but I like it better than the second one. I like them all. I mean, and we actually, my son and I sat down and watched these all in one day. Like we watched the first one before lunch and we watched the second one after lunch. And then,
yeah, it's like fast food. It's like
then,
you can't help but just be like, all right, put the next one on.
And then we ordered pizza. We watched the third one while we ate pizza for dinner.
Yep.
So, but you know what I didn't realize is my son likes these movies, but I didn't realize he hasn't watched them that many times. But he has like whole sections of this dialogue memorized. Like he was talking along with the film. I was like, I had no idea that you would memorize so much of this film. He's like,
Mom's so proud.
Like, I love this movie.
Yeah. No, we've got a month left for 4.
There's no film, I think, that I want to see more this year than the fourth one.
Not even Cocaine Bear?
If you guys weren't making me watch Cocaine Bear, I would not go see Cocaine Bear. I just want to be upfront about that.
We are making you watch Cocaine Bear.
But I mean, I think the fourth John Wick and the new Spider-Verse movie. Those are the 2 movies that I really want to see this year.
Yeah. No, it's coming.
All right. So we did it. We talked 3 John Wick movies. So I know it's improbable, but did we have time to do anything else this week?
We did. I am completely caught up on The Last of Us. I'm not familiar with the video game. I don't really play a lot of those role-playing games or whatever. So I wasn't that familiar with it. I know there was a big hype going in that HBO had this property. And 20 minutes into the first episode, my wife was like, oh, it's another zombie movie. And then was completely turned off because, we've been burned a bit by Walking Dead. You get obsessed with it and you watch it and it just becomes a soap opera like everything else. But I will tell you, this last episode, I really am liking what they're doing. They are trying different things. There's whole episodes devoted to flashbacks, kind of fleshing out this world. I'm liking it. I like it. I enjoy it.
I really thought that this episode was a step in the right direction. I didn't see the episode that everybody,
the
third one that everybody got so emotional over. I thought this one was more emotional.
This was, I think if you're a fan of the video games, because from what I understand, some of these characters that they're introducing are characters that are played in the video games. And maybe they're not doing them the service, that people think that there's some longevity, but I don't know. I'm on board for right now. I'm liking it.
All right. So I'm also going to talk about another TV show that I know that Christine is watching too, because this was on my radar and she sent us a text about, oh, you got to watch this. Poker Face, which is on Peacock. That's like addiction within 5 minutes of watching the first episode. So thankfully, and they probably knew this, that people would want to binge it, but they still wanted to hold back a little. So they gave you 4 episodes, like right out of the gate, that you could binge through. And then they're now stringing you along week after week after week. And those drop on Thursday. And we watch those like as soon as they drop. Ryan Johnson is heavily involved. It really is a throwback for me to shows like the A-Team, or The Incredible Hulk, where you set up this story in the first episode where the character is now on the run for the rest of the series, but is helping people. So each episode is a standalone story.
Interesting. Okay.
But she's got this other, evil force that is on her tail. And sometimes they show up in an episode, sometimes they don't. It's almost like waiting for the smoking man to appear in X-Files episode.
Yeah.
You're waiting for that overarching
Mythology,
story to kick in again, which probably won't happen here until the last episode of the season, I'm guessing. But I'm okay with that because these have all been very entertaining as standalones.
I mean, they picked it up a little bit in the 4th episode, the heavy metal one, right?
Yeah.
Because she goes viral.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Chloe Sevigny, who is playing the lead singer of this.
I said to my husband, I was like, wow, I haven't seen Chloe Sevigny in something in so long. I feel like she was in every indie movie, right, for about 10 years there. And then I was like, gosh, I just haven't seen her in anything in such a long time. But I think that's one of the really fun things about this, too, is like it's a real throwback in terms of every week there's like a guest, right? Like a guest star, like when you were a kid and you would watch these TV shows and there would be like some semi-famous person was the guest star every week. And there's been such an incredible lineup of people in these episodes. Last week was Ellen Barkin. I was like, so happy to see Ellen Barkin.
And Tim Meadows, mostly known for his SNL time in the 90s. Right, yeah. And he was great too in that episode.
Yeah. And Jamila Jamil was in that one too. The one from the previous week, Judith Light and Reed Birney, which I was laughing because Reed Birney played her husband in The Menu. They played the married couple in The Menu, and they're both in that episode. Every week is fun. Every week. And what I like too is the format is you actually sort of see the murder at the beginning of the episode, and then you see how Charlie comes into it and tries to unwind it. Because
the conceit is this character knows when somebody is lying. That's her superpower. Oh. So, and of course, as she's running from the forces that are chasing her from the first episode, which had Adrian Brody and
Benjamin Bratt.
I was like, his name was escaping me.
Mm-hmm.
So Adrian Brody's dead, but Benjamin Bratt has been chasing her throughout the arc of this first season. And sometimes he catches up and sometimes you don't see him. But wherever she goes, she's like, taking these odd jobs here and there. Somebody's always getting murdered wherever she goes. And so she's got to figure out by, using her prowess to figure out who's lying and who's not. So she solves the murder and then she moves on. So it's kind of like the A-Team helping out these people in one episode, then moving on.
So my question to you is this available only on the paid Peacock version or is it available on the free?
Well, I don't know.
There's commercials. I don't know.
Yeah, they do show commercials. I have the paid Peacock version, but I don't pay for it, as I mentioned before. If you guys should check with your cable company and see if you get it for free, because it's part of my cable package. So you should check because you might be able to watch some of that stuff without having to upgrade to the paid version. But that is also what I did this week is watching Poker Face, possibly the only TV show I've watched in years that I care enough about to tune into every week. And we also, as I mentioned earlier, went to see Some Like It Hot yesterday, the Billy Wilder classic. The Music Box has been doing a Billy Wilder series for 7 weeks now. The programmer came on before the show, as he does every week, and he tells these little anecdotes about the film. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen Some Like It Hot or if you're at least familiar with it, but there's a very famous last line of this film, nobody's perfect. So it's Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. The film is set in 1929 in Chicago, because Chicago's the center of the universe, as we've established.
Yep.
They witness a mob hit, and in order to disguise themselves, they're musicians, they cross-dress and join a girls only band that's going to Florida so they can hide away from these mobsters. And Marilyn Monroe is in it as one of the members of the band, and of course Tony Curtis's character falls in love with her, and he does at one point during the film, he does an amazing, spot-on impression of Cary Grant as he's pretending to be this millionaire character. And he sounds so much like Cary Grant. If you weren't looking at his face, you might think it was Cary Grant. But apparently, when Billy Wilder asked Cary Grant what he thought of the impression, he was like, I don't talk like that.
Meanwhile, he said it exactly
Like,
the same way.
you definitely do. In the film, Jack Lemmon's character, he gets a proposal from this man who is in love with his female self. And at the end of the movie, he confesses, he's like, I can't marry you. I'm a man. And he takes off his wig, and the guy says, well, nobody's perfect. And that's the final
And
line
they
of the
lived
film.
happily ever after.
And before the film started, they showed a picture of Billy Wilder's gravestone, which he had, asked for, before his death. And it says, there's no dates on it. It just says, Billy Wilder, I'm a writer, but then nobody's perfect.
Very cool. Just to let everybody know, Poker Face is only available on the premium version of Peacock.
Oh,
You can watch the first. You can watch
It's
the
worth
first
it.
episode for
It's
free.
worth it.
I
What
think
is that,
it's
$4.99 a month.
I think it's worth it for $5.
Yeah, I
like-
know, but I just one
know,
more paying service.
Right.
It's-
And then there's so many things out there too. That's what, my son keeps saying, oh, we should get Hulu because there's a couple things we wanted to see that were on Hulu. I'm like, we don't even watch half the stuff
But
for
that's-
the
I mean, like,
services that we do have.
My wife wanted to watch Yellowstone, and we finally got Paramount, and it's not even on there anymore. It's on Peacock Premium.
So drop Paramount and get Peacock.
I'm not playing these games.
Did they also, getting back to Billy Wilder's gravestone? Did they also picture Jack Lemmon's gravestone?
No, they didn't. Just Billy Wilder's because it was for.
Because Jack Lemmon says Jack Lemmon in, and then an arrow pointing down.
Now starring.
My favorite scene in Some Like It Hot is when they both dance to Billy Joel's My Life in drag.
Nice. I love it.
Nope.
There you go. Come on. You made
Nope.
a Bosom Buddies reference.
You
You can't even have that. They don't have the song on the DVD, by the way.
But it was so much fun to watch this with like a theater full of people.
I
And,
can imagine. Yeah.
everybody is like guffawing at these
I was
jokes.
gonna say I remember it being very funny.
It's
Very
such a fun movie. It's like a real, like spot on, screwball comedy, like in the old fashioned sense. It's very, very sexy, very, very risque for the time period. I mean, Billy Wilder was pushing every envelope with this script. Some of the innuendo in this film, I can't believe they got away with. So much fun.
very cool.
So next week, what are we doing? I think this is going to be big.
This is going to be big. Ant-Man and the Wasp? Quantumania?
Quantumania. So we're finally getting Kang the Conqueror.
A person we've
Oh.
expected to see
I
at
know,
the
since-
end of every
since
Marvel
Loki.
film.
Since Loki 4 years ago. How long ago was that show? Yeah, I guess he's finally showing up.
So again, this means I'm going to be able to stop covering my eyes and closing my ears at the
That's
beginning of
right.
every movie.
You have made it, my friend.
I've
You have
made it.
And they just
I've
keep
made
dropping
it.
new trailers. Stop. Enough.
So yes, we are going back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe next week with
Yes.
Quantumania.
Yes.
And what are we covering along with it? Is this a completely superficial, art-driven decision?
Yeah, it was completely based on the movie posters are identical. Inner space.
Inner space.
But people shrink down. They go little.
Is this the Dennis Quaid movie?
This is Dennis Quaid, Martin
is the
Short,
Dennis
and,
Quaid, Martin
Meg
Short.
Ryan. Meg Ryan.
Yeah, Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
Mm,
Maybe
haven't
there's
watched
a
this in a
guffaw.
long
Maybe there's.
time.
It's been a very long time.
yeah.
What was that 88? No, it
I
was later than
always
that.
get this mixed up in my head with Dreamscape for some reason.
Oh, that's
Because
also
they both have Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid.
That could be. That could
yeah,
be.
this is not that. This is not that.
I remember Dreamscape because that came out.
It's a nice poster.
I was fairly young when that came out. I remember that movie scared me a little bit because the whole concept was like people could go into your dreams
Yeah.
and like manipulate.
Talk about the
Thanks.
Warriors come out to play. That's the Dreamscape guy.
Oh no! Good
We're
thing
going to
not
talk about
watching that one.
Dreamscape now. Forget
No.
Inner Space.
Jim's like, I was only on board because I thought it was Dreamscape.
That's right. Damn it, that's not this movie.
We'll keep that one in the back pocket. Dreamscape.
Yeah,
Don't forget it. Dreamscape.
We have a lot of movies in the back pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, listen, if you made it through this schlag, thank you.
Ooh, now I got to
Congrats.
edit this whole thing.
Yeah, Jim's got his work cut out for him. There's not an inch you can cut out of that. It's all gold, baby. It's all gold.
Gold. I'm not going to touch it. Just it's going to drop it as is.
4 hours. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
Jeff and I are like, John Wick, we not see. What is John Wick?
Like I
We
said,
like hard target.